Good morning, everyone. So this is a continuation of the last video I posted, and just to recap. So when I went um, you know, to be back at the school, I had to deal with those things. But what really changed was during that semester or during the time that I was enrolling there, I felt like, okay, this is my first real opportunity to be able to actually be in school for an entire year. And so, because of the past experiences, I really didn't want to have to go through the same thing with, like, are we going to leave out of the school, or the situation going to be the same? So, I primarily just focused on, you know, being active. So whether that was through football or through wrestling, and of course, because this was now my first opportunity to really do those things, I invested myself into them. And because I started gaining success, even though I was still getting bullied and harassed or picked on or things like that, I just kept my focus on what I could do. And then at a certain point, because nobody in my family, or at least even my dad that was there, because they didn't go to the events, most of the time I was just, focusing on supporting my teammates and being out there. And then we had some tournaments that were, of course, uh, at the school itself. And the best thing about one of these tournaments, or at least one of these meets, where another school would come in and you would have competition, and it's based off of your team efforts, even though it's a individual class sport. So I had the opportunity to finally, you know, like try to showcase my talents. And a couple of times they didn't have someone who fit that weight class, or they didn't have someone to go against. That happens. But on this particular occasion, it was for sure that something was, someone was going to be there, that the school was going to show up, and that everything was going to go the way that we all expected it to go every time. And because of this happening at the school, a lot of the other, sports were either going to get off their practice, or they would still be around at the time that it starts. Now, I was at a lower weight class, so generally I would go in one of the first few matches. And because of that, all the people that were looking, or at least some of the people that were, um, you know, teasing me or using those nicknames or whatnot, they kind of waited around. They wanted to see, like, okay, is he gonna do something, right? Is he, like, because my focus was just like training, or at least working out. And um, I didn't spend a lot of time in the gym, but I just tried to mentally focus on, like, I'm not going to let this opportunity pass by me. I'm going to take advantage of it. I'm going to do whatever I can. And so when the time came, uh, I was sitting there and I was getting ready, and I was like super focused. I said, "That's it. I'm gonna win this. I'm gonna defeat my opponent, for myself, really, to build that confidence, because I had already started to gain some momentum." And I remember distinctly that when it happened, you know, I went out there, and within, like, the first, we'll say, 20 seconds, I was able to get them into an ankle pick, and then I pinned them within about 20 seconds, 30 seconds or so. And a lot of people, they didn't expect it to go that way. They didn't expect things to even happen for me, because of the way that they were thinking, in terms of their predetermined opinions. But I made sure to seize that opportunity, despite all of the noise, despite all of the circumstances that were happening, internally or externally in my house. I just knew that I can't keep going through that same process, or at least, I'm not going to let people determine my outcomes. And so I took advantage of that and I pinned them, and I just did it like, like it was nothing. I didn't think of it. I didn't, think of it like, oh, I'm so much better. I just had that mental focus when, at times I didn't have that focus. Now, moving into the later part of that season, I would go to the finals or something like that, and what ended up happening really was, although I was confident and although I was able to win throughout the semester, when it came down to, like, let's say playoffs or championships or things like that, I still struggled. I never was the person who won a medal or anything like that. More like participation trophies in my past. But the problem that ended up happening was, although I was so confident, I got into a match where someone was pretty much doing a ball and chain, and nobody likes to honestly keep getting you know hit in the lower regions in the ball chain, and so that was a pretty annoying situation. And the guy was stronger than me, and unfortunately, like, I was just like, man, something's going on. And what really happened was, I had also had problems with my hip flexors after that, and because of that kind of strain, it was definitely uncomfortable in most cases. So that was really the first year that I got to spend, you know, the actually take the time to better prepare myself. And then, after that, track season was coming up. And although I felt good, and I did still participate in track, and I did track actually in ninth grade as well. But primarily between the sophomore year, when I went out for track, I still encountered the same coaches, right? The same football coaches, and a lot of them were still doubting me. There was a shortage on some of the teams, right? For, let's say, the 4x100s or even that, but I primarily did like long distance because I didn't even have the confidence enough to feel adequate. Plus, the coaches themselves, now that they're rerunning the same program, they're kind of not encouraging me in a way, but they're more or less pressuring me to say, like, hey, you're not, like, fast enough for this, or you're not good enough to be in this, so we're just going to replace you, or we're going to put you wherever. And so that's where I ended up being in long distance, because that's the only place that they wanted to put me, and which was fine, because then I still competed. And if anybody knows about long distance, is it takes strong mental fortitude, right? As well as you gotta know when to make the right moves and how to balance yourself when it comes to taking off or being able to set a pace. So when I looked at it and I said, okay, well, long distance, I like the short distance too, but I'll go ahead and do it, no problem, or whatever. And a lot of the reason why I was so focused on being, active, was because there was no point of me sitting at home and potentially dealing with problems again. But in between that time, I did meet some other students, and as I finished that school year, I I think it was my towards the end of the sophomore year, or going into it, but I was like, yeah, I got into the 11th grade. I spent basically the summer um, sitting around doing a whole lot of really nothing. because, well,